So you're probably going to spend thousands on how to communicate better, on how to utilize your body language. In fact, as someone that spent years in sales, part of the training that the corporate space invested heavy, a lot of money on, was in shaking hands, the right scripts, and you freaking name it. Now you're probably doing the same thing in your leadership or your relationship, and I'm here to tell you that this is absolutely crap. Why? Quite simply because after 3 months, that's exactly what happens. Under pressure completely is meaningless. Why? Because you're not the same person under pressure. No one talks about this, but the only version of you that actually counts is who you are under pressure. Because that's who you truly are anyway. Because that's when the mask, ego, goes out the window. That's when people's approval, even if you want it, completely goes out the window too. And that's when the people you care about, even if you want to protect it, go out the window. That is your core, and that comes out when this is unstable. Now, in order for us to get this stable so that none of this loses again, and you can start actually making all those courses you spent money on tangible, what you need to get right is your identity. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about today, because we don't change behavior around here, we change identity. My name is Matt Doe, and I've spent a lot of time in the self-improvement space trying to figure out how to actually get these things in place. One of the main reasons why is because as a husband and a father, and most importantly, an entrepreneur, there's a lot of things that we go through that no one tells us how to fix. And after building a system around making sure that there's an effective way to do it, and actually writing a book on it, I decided to spend some time with you today in helping you understand how to never spend another penny on another behavioral course without them fixing your identity first. And if most of the people that haven't even worked with me have seen tangible results, as you can probably see here, I'll probably put in the notes somewhere. But without further ado, let's dive in. Cool, so you've seen this draw. This is actually from a client call. If he's watching, he's going to know exactly who he is. I definitely removed his name because you don't want to know who he is, because I keep all my clients private. Anyways, I digress. Right, so this here is exactly what you need, right? You need a clear identity on who you are. You need a clear set of rules that you stand for and you stand against, okay? Now, that starts off with your core values, okay? So core values set the frame, okay? What do you stand for? And what do you stand against? Okay? Now, I'm going to use my client as an example. For the sake of the video, I'm going to call him Kane. He stands for freedom, development, quality of life, personal time, and health. Okay? So anything that goes against this is directly against what he values, which means he's not going to have the drive to do it, he's not going to be motivated to do it, he's not going to be and it's going to feel disgusting to whatever he's trying to do instead, right? So say for instance he gets a partner that doesn't give a toss about freedom, doesn't care about development, doesn't care about quality of life, doesn't care about personal time, doesn't care about health. Guess what? He's going to see this person, regardless of what another person thinks, as non-attractive. Why? Because his core values are currently being threatened. You want to figure out what your core values are, what your partner's core values are, and like I said in my previous video, start to pour into them, okay? Because when you pour into them, you start to see that that person feels nurtured, because your identity is like a vehicle, okay? And your core values, which are attached to your fulfillment, are the petrol station, okay? Now, there's other things, of course, that we're going to go into now, but the difference is, to make it quite practical, is that when you ignore all of this and you go straight into behavior, okay? So for instance, you want to get your child to listen to what you're saying to them, and you have zero idea what the core values are, guess what happens? They don't listen. Or if they do, they listen on that day and then ignore you the next day. Why? Because their core values are currently being disregarded by him and you. Now, what happens when your core values are being looked after? All of a sudden, you've got someone that's compliant. They're not compliant, they're loyal to their core values. That is human beings. Once a human being has recognized what they value and what they stand against, you've got someone that you can trust. Why? Because they know why they're doing what they're doing. When you don't have that, they may have freedom, they may have development, they may have quality of life, they may have personal time, they may have health. They may also have, I like to have fun, or I like to experience things. And you don't know that. So there you are trying to create rules or control the behavior without controlling what's driving it. Okay? So, understand the core values of whoever you're dealing with. Child, partner, whoever. Change your life. Life changer. Now, because we identified what his core values are, we were able to understand what's going to fulfill him. Okay? So that was one sector covered. So as long as he looks at his core values, okay, these are things that he's not going to compromise on. For instance, I am not going to compromise on fitness. Okay? I can compromise on food. This is why I'm not as shredded as I used to be. Okay? Why? Because fitness to me represents strength. And strength is something I didn't have growing up. So I am not going to compromise on strength. So if my partner felt ambitious and wanted to tell me, oh, by the way, I think you should stop going gym, guess what happens? The answer is a straight no. In fact, how could you ask me such a thing? Why? Because the core values stems from a lack of value that you didn't have growing up. Does that make sense? So, if I now said strength is one of my core values, this is why I like boxing. You see them skills, brother? This is why I like anything that represents strength, right? This is why I like mental strength. This is why I like, let's think of action movies. Why? Because I know what it's like to be the opposite, and I want nothing to do with that. This is why I value it. Cool. So that's what makes me fulfilled. All right. And as a man, you're burning out. It's because you don't know your core values, or you're completely ignoring them. I kid you not. You start to look after your core values. Burnout is going to be the least of your worries. Why? Because you're going to have a solution to the problem. So, that's core values covered. Now, I made some other things that are also very important, such as family, focus, finance, friends, mind, future, and last but not least, protecting your world, right? So this clear identity thing is pretty much your world, right? Your vehicle. And I don't want to get too esoteric because it's not my field, but as within, so without, all is in the mind, that is your world. Okay? So in other words, that is, in this space, you're the king. Okay? In this thing you're the king of this. Okay? And the moment you realize that, you go from stage 0, where you get everyone to tell you who you are, to this is what I stand for, this is what I stand against, and you either like it or not. And I'm cool with whatever outcome you have. And that's how you stop getting intertwined. I kid you not, this saved me from getting out from a cult. You want to be bulletproof from manipulation? Understand who the hell you are. Because all manipulation is not, and this is where it gets interesting, because manipulation a lot of times gets tainted as, oh, you're a donor. How could you get manipulated? How could you get someone that... Manipulation happens when you're so reliant on the facts that all they have to do is change the narrative. I grew up stubborn, bro. Like, I was very stubborn. And that made me the easiest target. Because I just needed the narrative to align with what I already believe. That's how you can easily get manipulated. So if your idea of I'm never going to manipulate it is I'm going to be stubborn. I'm going to stick to my guns. I'm going to stick to what I know. Not only you're going to struggle to change, but you're the easiest person to manipulate because all you have to do is find a way to connect the dots with what you already believe. I was watching an interview. A guy I used to be very close friends with said something really funny. And as he said that, I was just like, so you can't see what you've just said, brother. And the cut the long story short, he was so certain that he believed in what he was doing that he didn't realize that that's exactly how they got him. Anyways, I digress. So that is so once you got clear identity, no one else gets to tell you who you are. You don't have a clear identity, you become object for anyone to tell you. This is exactly how the military, for instance, bamboozles people into doing some of the crazy things they've done today. This is how, after they've gone to military and they come out, they go through a lot of trauma because they've lived a lot of intensive moments where they've experienced a lot of loss, a lot of what's the word I'm looking for? I don't want to go too deep into it, but my point is, once you have a clear identity, anyone can tell you who you are. Cool. So family, what does that mean to you? Okay. So when it came to me, I said I want to be a healthy husband. That doesn't mean I'm a doormat. That doesn't mean that I don't like to do things for me. But that does mean that I'm going to communicate properly. That does mean that I'm going to look after my own family. That does mean that if my family is threatened, I'm going to do the right thing. Why? Because family to me, or the role, the way I've attached family to my identity is by me playing the role of the healthy husband. So if I now get into an argument, I'm not going to react because I'm human. That's not what a healthy husband does. There's a clash, you see? And that's how you get into situations where you end up regretting. You don't know where you stand, so you don't know what to refer back to. This is your anchor. Cool. So once you understand that as a family man, you represent the healthy man or the healthy husband in all aspects, or the healthy wife, whoever's watching, you're going to start to adopt your behavior to it. Why? Because you now have the B. A lot of us focus on the do and hope to have. But without the be, it will never happen. Why? Because you need to understand where you stand in the first place. Because it's never the who, it's never the how, it's always the who. Right, next is focus. Hocus pocus. See what I did there? I'm joking. Probably gonna cut this out. If I don't, it is what it is. Anyways, your brain, I think, takes in around 4,000 pieces of information a second, and it's only, or a minute, a second or a minute, and it's only allowed to filter around 40 of them. Okay, and the 40 it filters is based on a request. So think of your brain as this filtering machine that is wired to just focus on the things it needs to focus on. This is why a billionaire and a poor man can walk in the same street and live two different experiences. Both brains are wired to look for specific things. The billionaire is wired for opportunities or like-minded people. Same with the poor man. Like-minded people. Your focus filters your decisions. Your focus filters your decisions. So in other words, what you need to do is you need to be very clear on what you want to focus on, or what you're focusing on means to you. So in other words, when it now comes to this, what does that mean for me? In my sense, I said I am going to focus on abundance, I'm going to focus on wealth, I'm going to focus on observing the things that benefit the person I want to become. If it doesn't align with that, I'm not interested. This is why I don't have the capacity to talk about wars or politics or things that I have zero control over. Do they tell you about the good stuff that's happening? Hey, by the way, the government has this loophole for taxes. Have you ever heard that in the news? Because it happens. Or, okay, alright guys, by the way, there's this new initiative where if you now speak to this investor, he's going to be open. They don't talk about that. What do they talk about? Oh, this person's been stabbed to death and you need to know about it because the others... So my point is this. What you focus on defines your decisions. Now, finance. I want to keep it as simple as possible. That should be tailored to the freaking person you want to be. I wish someone grabbed me by the neck 10 years ago and told me that. Spend less than you earn, boy. Don't do anything crazy. Don't. Spend less than you earn. That's what millionaires do. That's why they stay millionaires. If a millionaire was to spend $1 million, he will no longer be a millionaire. Millionaires spend £50 and invest 200 so they can stay millionaires. Broke people spend £100 and hope for it to come back in the next paycheck. I'm telling you that because that was me. The moment I got into entrepreneurship and I started to understand financial literacy on a different scale, I started to realize how many dumb decisions I've made my whole life. Do you know what I want you to do? If you're not an entrepreneur or someone making 6 figures or whatever, whoever, now I just want you to calculate how much you've made so far. I just run through the paychecks, people signing if you're a coach, whatever, people that signed into your programs, just run through how much you've made so far and how much you got left from that. That would tell you whether things need to change financially. Because it did for me, right? Cool. Next is friends. Now, this one is baffling to me, okay? Now, I grew up with, and I still have very long-term friendships. Now, everyone in the entrepreneurial space will tell you, screw your friends, don't speak to them. If they don't add value to yourself, get rid of them, and blah, 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 blah. Cut everyone off. And look, listen, if they add value to your fulfillment, keep them. If they don't, they will drain you. It's as simple as that. You know whether you should keep them or not. Do they talk about freedom? Do they talk about development? Do they talk about quality of life? Do they talk about personal time? Do they talk about health? Keep them. They nurture your freaking fulfillment values anyway. If they don't, then keep them at a distance, right? I've got some friends, by the way, that may not necessarily have this. We may not have our core values in common, but we've got family in common. They also want to be healthy husbands. And we can both talk about how to help us with that. Or they also want to cut off the news and just focus on abundance, right? You can have friends for different purposes. You just need to understand what made you connect with them, because what connected you to them can disconnect you from them. If you're connected to your friends because of alcohol and you have zero intentions of drinking alcohol again, it's going to be tough for you to keep that friendship, because that's the only thing you guys connected on, right? So that's what I'll say on friends. Now, mind. This one is very powerful. I said to my client, and I've had a bit of a hiccup when it came to this, because this ties into something else. But to keep it simple so that we can move forward to the next thing, when it comes to mind, you need to understand something. The world will tell you who you are every single time. And if you're not clear on who you are, you're going to listen to them. Why? Because it's either they tell you or you tell them. But someone has to speak. And for years, I allowed everybody else to speak. Right? I allowed my friends to speak. I allowed my family to speak. I allowed my job to speak, my future. I allowed everybody but myself to speak. I didn't give myself a voice. Why? Because I needed approval. I needed people to... I valued how people saw me. You see, a lot of us grew up thinking that the ego is this beautiful thing that men need to achieve great things in life. Every man that's done anything great in life has got some ego about them. And I'm here to tell you that if you genuinely believe that, but you need some realization, right? And what I mean by realization is, okay, let's talk about B, right? If ego and being is the same thing, do they both need people to approve of them? Because I can't be the best. I can't be one of one. It's vague and it doesn't make sense unless I add something else to it, which is people, right? I can't be the worst. I can't be enough. Why? because it's all attached to another person. If I just want to be without ego, that is when I can say I want to be authentic. See how that's with or without people? I want to be courageous. I want to be audacious. I want to be abundant. I want to be gracious. I want to be merciful. Whatever it is, right? The moment it's attached to other people is ego driven. And if it's ego driven, your stability is fragile. Because what happens when you're not the best? It's not enough. I need more. I done that. That's what I can tell you it. Right? The moment you needing to be is reliant on other people, that's ego and is making you a fragile person. So, tell yourself who you are without needing anybody else to accept it or approve it, so that you can stand on what you believe on without anyone else needing to agree on it. Okay? Take 100% ownership of who you are and what you believe in. Now, future. This one's very important. This, when it comes to your identity, it's your North Star. Okay? It's your GPS, it's your sat nav. When you have to reroute, this is what allows you to guarantee you're going to get to the outcome. Now, this is kind of intertwined with mind. In a way, it kind of is, and I'm going to explain why. Right? Because everyone talks about mindset, right? But I came to a conclusion that actually mindset is my mind being set on something. And if my mind is being set on the past or miserable things or things that I don't want to achieve, then guess what? My future isn't clear and I'm never going to get there. Or if I am going to get there, it's going to be because of something that I had no idea or ability to control or protect, right? So think of future as your GPS or sat nav that now starts to dictate your behavior. Because you've decided who this person is, okay, so I'm going to use myself as an example. So I decided that I was going to be an influential, international, multi-level speaker and author across many nations. So now my behavior starts to adjust to it. I don't need to pretend, because I've already accepted that this is who I am, or I'm going to be, or I am moving towards becoming. Right? We can talk about the timing stuff in a different video, but my point is quite simple. Be loyal to your future and be a complete douchebag to your present. Complete disregard it, disrespect it, and also if it ever came in terms of choosing between your future self or your current self, betray your current self every single time. Tell your current self, you can't trust me. I belong to my future. That is how you change. Next, protect your world. Okay? Protect your world. Let's talk about safety, and we're going to dive into how to consolidate that all together. But protect your world. Right? What does that mean? So, when I was trying to get out of difficult situations, I, for a very long time, struggled with the word no, because I was a people pleaser. And no was danger, and people pleasing was safety. Why? Because if I people please, people will be happy with me, or people will accept me, or I get the three things that will establish my behavior. Alright, it's time for you to go. It's been real. Okay, so if you look at behavior now, so reward, safety, and friendship. No, I said belonging. Right. So your behavior is driven. Sorry, blame Nero for this, man. There we go. Sorry, just it's being okay. Cool. So your behavior is being driven by reward, safety, or belonging. What I mean by that is, if you think of yourself as a child, think of how you got reward, right? If you're an African child, reward came from good behavior. So you hid the bad behavior. And you're probably still doing that now. Why? Because your brain has installed a system that you haven't updated yet. So you're currently operating on an outdated software. Think of safety. If safety came from a lot of the clients I've spoken to, or let me talk about myself, right? So my safety came from people pleasing, right? So I earned reward through good behavior. And I earned safety through people pleasing. And that's why a lot of men are stuck. Why? Because people pleasing also means I want to fix this for you. People pleasing also means that I'm going to go above and beyond so that I can make you happy. Because I don't believe that I can be safe otherwise. That's the dark side of it, right? And then belonging came from acceptance, which is when you now start to camouflage who you truly are. Because as long as if you don't blend in, then you won't belong, right? And that's what happens when a kid moves 3-4 times and has no friends and wants to figure out that in order for him to make friends, he needs to understand how to. Okay, so I now start to observe people. So now the reason why I'm so good at observing people now is because this came with benefits, which is I started to observe people. I was trying to understand what is it about them that is going to make them feel safe in collaborating or working with me. So I'll study them. I studied movies, right? So this was my old system, right? And that drove my behavior. Because I earned reward through good behavior, guess what happened when that was threatened? I would lie, hide it, or pretend it doesn't exist. And I would hide or anything that makes me feel ashamed or whatever the case is, I would hide it. That was my behavior. Safety. Because I people pleased, guess what happened? If I was in danger, what would I do to earn safety? Hey, let's talk about this. Belonging, same thing. Come on, guys, work with me. You know, I'm here for you. Like, let's be friends. What do I have to do to earn your acceptance? So, in other words, the problem with this is that I created a system that when things were good, it was not because of me, and when things were bad, it was completely out of my control. So, what did I do to change things? Number one, I went from I can't remember what the first one was. It was I think it was people pleasing. So people pleasing became self-acceptance. Acceptance authenticity. And then, last but not least, which I can't remember, so I said people pleasing, acceptance, Reward good behavior. This one became integrity. Yes. Right? So I was no longer gonna lie to people. I was just gonna be honest. Why? Because that way I don't need you to like me or dislike me, but at least you can trust I'm gonna tell you the truth. Acceptance. That went from acceptance to authenticity. Why? Because I didn't need you to accept me. I needed to accept myself. So if that doesn't work for you, you can F off respectfully. Wish you the best of luck, brother. And then people pleasing went from that to self-acceptance, which basically quite similar to the first one, to the one we just mentioned, but it was basically the fact that I basically said to myself, listen, as long as I can accept myself, or as long as my future self can live with this decision, you guys don't give a toss. I'm sorry. And that is how my behavior now automatically shifted. So now when I'm speaking to 1,000 of people, right, guess what? As long as I'm honest, authentic, and I'm stable. That safety, reward, and a lot of you guys' system need to look into that, because that's what's causing the friction. Your stability can't be established until that's cleared. Right? So this is why, in order for you to get to the outcome you need, you don't need to change your behavior, you need to change your identity. Now, if you do these 3 things and everything I've mentioned in this video, I guarantee you, and you start to track it over time, you're going to see a shift. Why? Because the people that paid me to get this transformation saw the shift too. So, without further ado, really hope this video has added value to you. If you want to work with me on a one-to-one basis, DM me on Instagram or via email. And yeah, guess today is the first lesson of the board. See you in the next one.